Please welcome our next session, Synthetic Reality, the AI Trust Paradox.
Clicker.
Thank you. Awesome. Good morning, everybody. How's everyone feeling? Yeah? Little hungover? No? Okay, not that anyone's going to admit anyway. So I'm going to keep this pretty top level, and we'll get through it. So what am I talking about today? We did our own research, and I'll explain that in a little bit, but I am not here to tell you pro, con, you should or you shouldn't. I want to tell you what the industry is thinking and what the researchers are thinking. So a little bit about me to give a little bit more context. I am the Senior Research Manager at Cint for Customer Insights and Voice of Customer. I've been obsessed with human behavior for about the last decade. I come from a sociology background, and I've worked in B2B tech, helping companies connect to their customers for their needs, desires. How can we increase their customer satisfaction? And ultimately, how do we increase revenue? So what does that mean in the context of Cint? Bear with me for a second. I am a market researcher who does research on other market researchers, how they research and what they think of our research tool. It's a little bit meta, but what it really comes down to is Cint's mission is to relentlessly innovate in the pursuit of feeding the world's curiosity. So I'm curious about what researchers think, and I'm curious about you guys as well. So if I can get you to raise your hand if you are currently a researcher or if you have a researcher background. Okay, we've got a couple, awesome. And who here works for a synthetic data company or an AI company? Okay, awesome. That gives me a good way to frame this. So for those that are researchers, maybe you filled in this data. If you're a vendor, these are your prospects or your future customers and what they really think. So when we conducted this survey in late of last year, we got just under 200 global respondents. Now I'm going to brag a little bit. Our CPI was 0, our response rate was off the charts, and we had no bad quality. That's because we were surveying our customers, and it's a little bit different. But I know that's a hot topic. So we surveyed brands, marketing research agencies, and marketing agencies to give you a nice selection and some varied titles. Ultimately, I'm going to spoil it a little bit, but we already know that AI and AI tools are being heavily used by researchers in the industry today. And it's not surprising. Synthetic data, though, is yet to be widely adopted. There are concerns citing ethics, reliability, authenticity, and trust. But with greater transparency and communication as to how reliable synthetic data is with specific use cases, this may change, and I'm sure the speakers behind me are definitely going to talk to that. So, what do we know about AI? We know that 74% of our respondents are already using AI in their 9-to-5. Now, that's not surprising. I know I am one of those. So, when you think of the market research industry in kind of law, you have one market researcher to 1,000 employees. So any help that I can get to get my work done faster, to be more efficient, and to defend my cost center and our dwindling resources, I'm going to take. So when we talk about change and innovation within the industry, we may be talking it slow, and I understand that. But as a market researcher, we're having to move quicker and quicker to make sure that we're staying in our jobs and that our companies are wanting to use our research. So, how are we using AI? 78% of our respondents are using AI for project setup and planning. And I know this is where I spend 2/3 of my time. 65% are using it for fielding and data collection, and 81% are using it for analyzing data. And that's where I spend about my last third of time in AI. But what about synthetic data specifically? I know that's what you're really interested in. AI we all kind of had a good understanding on. On average, only 12% of our respondents have used synthetic data in a specific use case. So we're really in that crossing the chasm early adopter stage. We see that 15% are increasing their sample sizes for niche audiences and target groups. 13% are asking additional questions to already completed surveys. 12% are reducing their LOI by distributing a subset of the survey to a subset of the target group. And then 12% are turning incompletes into completes, and 9% are replacing human respondents entirely in certain types of projects. Now, regardless of what you think of some of those use cases, or if you think we should be using synthetic data, that's where we are today. So we've asked respondents how they feel about synthetic data. And we've got some very strong feelings. There's a lot that need to reinforce the need for transparency and communication. If you've been to other conferences, there's an analogy that I've heard that if you believe in weighted data, you should believe in synthetic data. Now, I don't know if I believe that, and I don't know if you believe that. But rightly or wrongly, there are some very strong opinions about synthetic data. At the moment, when we ran the survey, 60% of our respondents are strongly opposed to synthetic data. They're citing concerns over ethics, trust, reliability, and authenticity. 38% are mixed or neutral, so they're showing cautious interest, but emphasize the need for more transparency, evidenced and detailed explanations of methodology. Who was here for the first day when Seema was talking? Couple of people? Yeah. So we were talking a lot about private equity and companies, and one thing that Seema said that really stuck out to me was our tech companies need to come back to their market research methodologies. And I think for anyone who works for an AI or a synthetic vendor here, be prepared. We're going to start asking those questions. How are you training the data? What is this based on? Why can't I ask these questions? How do we continue to prompt it? And that's going to help us build our trust and work with you guys. And we have 2% of our respondents who are positive about synthetic data. So they're open to exploring, given the high standard of validation and ethical clarity. So don't just take my word for it. We're going to give you some of the open ends, because this is where you get the real meat, the color to the image. I won't read all of it, but this is a project coordinator at one of our research agencies. And they said it's an echo chamber, a clever but an empty echo chamber. The idea of using AI to weed out speedsters, click-throughs, and bots, gorgeous. They love it, and we have talked about that this week. But for synthetic responses and dealing with a program to set things up, no thank you. People are still necessary. And they're not the only ones. This is a CEO who's at one of our research consultancies, I think. And understanding how it's created and what variance is compared to real sample is really important. We do need to see some of those academic studies. In the end, humans are unpredictable and irrational. And it's true. When Rachel invited us up here, she had no idea what I was going to do up here. With synthetic data, stayed the same thing. Our principal consultant, robust academic research, proving techniques. I don't trust the industry to get this right. Now, I've attended the Insights Association webinar series that they held in the last 2 to 3 weeks, which was great. They reported that based off academic research to date by other market researchers, on average, synthetic data is right or comparable to human insights 85% of the time. All week we've been talking about how accurate is market research. Well, it's about accurate 85% of the time. So as we get that little bit less accurate, how far are we from reality? And then finally, our senior fieldwork operations manager, they have been looking into synthetic sample so far. The use cases are very limited versus the risk of generating generic or inaccurate data. So we are starting to get there and we are starting to look, but we definitely need more resources. But it's not all bad, I promise. We do have some people that are really excited about this. So 45% of our respondents agree that they're interested in increasing sample sizes for niche target groups, meaning vendors, we need you to train them on really specific target groups. And I'm sure the people in this room can give you a cohesive list as to some of those target groups. And 43% agree that they're interested in reducing the LOI by distributing the survey to subsets of target groups. When we look even further, 45% agree that they're interested in asking additional questions to already completed survey responses. Now, I love this example personally. As a market researcher, when I'm presenting to my stakeholders, no matter how much prep you've done, there's always a question of, oh, do we ask them this question? Or let's run another survey and ask all of this. And sometimes you just don't want to hit your customers up that many times. So if I'm in the meeting and I can ask these questions to synthetic data that's trained on my additional survey, why wouldn't I use it? We do have 39% that are interested in turning incompletes into completes as well. Now, we had one final use case, which I think is probably the more controversial or hot topic for synthetic data, which is entirely replacing human respondents with synthetic data. Now, only 20% of our respondents are interested in this, which, as a market researcher, gives me a little bit of hope that some of our open ends will continue to be as creative and unpredictable, but it is something that we need to address as an industry. We've talked this week about social listening, AI, phone interviews, surveys, the evolution of the industry. Maybe this is the next thing. It's an add-on, maybe it won't replace. We briefly talked about that. But who knows? It depends on how we go. So, in conclusion, 74% of market researchers, your customers, are heavily utilizing AI. And it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon. We need it, and we need the help. Synthetic data has yet to be widely adopted, with only 18% currently using it, or sorry, 12% currently using it in particular use cases. And they're still concerned over ethics, reliability, authenticity, and trust. But with greater transparency and communication on how synthetic data is being trained and its increasing reliability, this may change how we start using it. Thank you.